"Get her off the comms. She's just the radio tech," one of the senior officers barked, slamming his fist on the table as chaos erupted across the base. Alarms screamed through the compound, surveillance feeds blinked to black. Intel was gone, systems fried, and the perimeter was about to be breached. Yet there she was, headset on, voice calm, hands flying across the console, not panicking, not shouting, just working like her life didn't depend on it, like all of theirs didn't. Elena Hayes was no one important. At least not in their eyes. She was the quiet girl in the corner of the communications tent, the one who brought coffee to briefings and nodded when spoken to, the one they forgot was even in the room. She didn't wear combat boots caked in mud, didn't boast medals or bark orders, but today, she was the only one who knew what was happening. 30 minutes earlier, a covert cyber attack had begun disabling every system on base. Drones grounded, cameras blinded, gates unlocked. It was a digital ambush, timed perfectly with a coordinated enemy ground strike. The base had 6 minutes before the outer fence fell, and they were overrun. Command scrambled. Their tech officers froze, helpless as screens flickered and drones dropped out of the sky. And that's when Eleanor stepped forward, uninvited, unnoticed, until she keyed into the emergency line and said just one thing. "I need access to Terminal 7. Right now." At first, no one listened. They brushed her off, even shouted at her to move. But she didn't back down. She grabbed the override cable from her pack, sprinted past a stunned lieutenant, and plugged directly into the manual command unit near the helipad. What they didn't know was that Elena had a classified clearance. What they never bothered to read on her file was that she had built the firewall system they were watching collapse. Lines of code flashed across her screen as she manually rerouted power from the drone hangars to the base's inner defense grid. She bypassed the central processor, already fried, and isolated the virus flooding their channels. Her fingers were a blur, sweat beaded down her temple, but her focus never wavered. Outside, gunfire cracked, helicopters hovered, uncertain where to deploy. And still the officer in charge barked orders that led nowhere. "She's wasting time," he snapped. But then something happened. The cameras blinked back to life, the drone feed re-engaged, the emergency gates slammed shut. In exactly 5 minutes and 42 seconds, Eleanor resecured the entire base. And that's when the enemy hit the outer perimeter, only to be met with fully operational turrets and remote-guided drones, now back online. The attack didn't last more than 60 seconds after that. Not one enemy made it through. Not one life was lost. When the dust settled and the last blackout alert cleared, silence fell over the control tent. Officers turned slowly to look at her, still seated on the floor, headset tilted, breathing hard. Just a technician. Just a simple woman. But the only one who hadn't panicked. The only one who acted. Then came the moment that went viral. One of the Black Hawk pilots burst into the room, helmet under one arm, eyes blazing. "Who the hell got our systems back?" he demanded. Eleanor stood slowly, unsure whether she was about to be scolded or thanked. When he saw her, he blinked, stunned, then nodded. "You saved the mission, and all of us." Word spread fast. General Anders himself, a man who barely acknowledged enlisted personnel, walked straight up to her 2 hours later during debrief. The entire base stood in formation, confused why they'd all been called. Elena stood at attention, unsure why she'd been summoned, until the general walked up, snapped a crisp salute, and said, "In 24 years of command, I've never seen anyone save a base faster. What you did today wasn't just heroic, it was surgical. You earned more than a commendation. You earned every soldier's respect on this ground." Applause exploded. Soldiers who'd never looked her way were now cheering. The same officers who had mocked her silence were now saluting it. Not because she asked for it, but because when everything fell apart, she was the one who held it together. What no one realized until later was that Elena had nearly passed out during the override. Her oxygen mask had failed halfway through, and she'd stayed conscious on pure adrenaline and will. She'd risked her life in silence because to her protecting the base wasn't optional. It was personal. Eleanor's brother had died on deployment 3 years earlier during a mission compromised by a similar cyber attack. She had promised herself no one else would die on her watch, and now she'd made good on that vow. They had called her just a comms tech, but now she was the name on every debrief, the hero in every report, the woman who saved an entire base in under 6 minutes, while everyone else stood frozen. If this story inspired you, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and drop a karma in the comments below.